Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme, revisiting bands that we've only checked out once in the past. This time we're checking out Glass Beach, who I actually had confused with someone else until I went back and looked at what we checked out from them, which was about this time last year, a couple months off. We checked out Classic J Dies and Goes to Hell Part 1. And I went and listened to that a little bit, and yeah, dude, that was a real fun track, very theatrical. So I'm glad I kind of refreshed myself on that a little bit because, like I said, I had a very different idea because I was thinking of a very different artist. And I thought we were going to be going into something very different. Lots of varies in there. So let's dive into this. We're going to be looking at Yoshi's Island, which is an interesting title for a song. Kind of curious if it's going to be lyrically thematic or if it might contain musical motifs from some of the Yoshi Island soundtrack. I don't know. Let's dive in though and see what's going on with Glass Beach today. Very interesting production on the guitars. Sort of phasing in and out quickly. I don't know, there's just a really interesting attack and decay on the guitars. Trying to make sense of the things that you feel now. The hell do you think that'll do to you? I won't say she, even though I know you want me to. I know that it's hard, but I swear I still love you. Very interesting rhythmic pattern on the vocals too. The end of the phrase doesn't line up at the end of the sentence. Usually we begin the next sentence at the tail end of the previous musical phrase. I can't take the pressure, cry on the bathroom floor, look in the mirror, cut right neck, cut out, cut your head off, chair, only cute with your hard eyes and makes you cry. But the things you think when you're out of your body, when yourself out of work, waviness going on in the background. Leave the city and don't leave the cover still. I know it's hard, but I swear I still love you. Who is that artist from the 2010s that this reminds me of? Is it Jason Mraz? Everything you think about her behind her back. The whole truth doesn't hurt to say you love her like a son. The world could kill her just 'cause she can't let it So like a quasi-psychedelic break there before returning back to this very normal sound for a verse. Interesting decision to split the vocals and harmonize like that when we haven't seen any of that this song. I am never gonna understand. I am everything you think about her behind her back. The whole truth doesn't hurt to say you care about your son. The world could kill her just 'cause she can't let it ride. like the bass guitar providing some body to this riff that the electric guitar kind of isn't leaning into. Again, I don't know, it's such a wild production on that guitar. And that fun synth pad. I was gonna say that the synth pad reminded me of steel drums that had a very like beach vibe to it. This 100% though, that was a great introduction to this sort of atmosphere. But yeah, that palm mute pattern with these sort of laid back, relaxing chords. Yeah. 100% ukulele playing on a beach shore. What? So return to the verse with the vocal melody, but we ramped up into like anime intro music on the guitars and drums, funkier, faster ideas, upbeat, louder. Like this proggy, jazzy ending. What in the world? All right. Where do we start with this? Energy, atmosphere, emotion. We'll get into some of the more technical elements of the performance in a second, but right now I just want to focus on the journey that I think the song takes us on. There is a fun element to a lot of the music in the first, mostly like 2 or 3 minutes, right before the first break, right before the first bridge, I guess we would call it. There's interesting waviness going on the guitars. We'll touch on that later. I don't know how they're doing it. I really don't know what it is. Like I said, to me it sounds like an interesting attack and decay, almost as if there's momentary fluctuations where the attack is because the thing with playing instruments, almost any instrument, is that your loudest, most impactful moment is usually at the beginning of the note. That is when you are vibrating the string at the widest frequency. It is when you are pushing the most air through your instruments. It is when you have struck the percussive instrument, and that is the peak sound. That is like the loudest it's ever going to be, and then it decays from there. But it almost sounds like during this peak sound, during the initial attack, it kind of quickly dips down and comes back up, almost like a very narrow valley. And so it is the loudest point of it, but it also feels quieter for some reason. And as we're decaying through, it also feels like it's sort of fluctuating between the natural decay slope that I expect and like these spikes to nothingness. I think that's what gives it its warbly waviness. That's my hypothesis on it anyways. It is wild though. It creates something that feels like a mirage more often than not, and makes me have a hard time understanding where I am musically. So we have that going on. But aside from that, when you listen to the bass, when you listen to the drums, when you listen to the synth pads, a lot of this is very bright, positive, uh, kind of chill in a lot of ways. We reach like ultimate chill later on in the track in that penultimate section, the beach vibes part. But I mean, this is not a song that feels like anxiety or sadness or anything like that to me. It is, for the most part, pretty upbeat and chill, except for the vocals. The vocals are consistently exasperated. There are these really deep, shallow, no, not deep, shallow, loud and shallow breaths taken at the end of every bar, two bars, something like that, every musical phrase. It is something that actually becomes a part of the cadence of the delivery, is to say 5 or 6 words, take a shallow breath, and then proceed on with the next. And that breath usually comes somewhere around beat 3 and 4, because 4, well, the end of this bar anyways, I don't know if it's exactly on 4 every time, but at the end we begin the starting words for the next sentence. We never begin a sentence on beat 1. It's usually right before beat 1 of a bar. And it creates this interesting phrasing where we always seem to be ahead of where we want to be lyrically. Almost as if he's running out of breath singing this stuff, and he's kind of rushing to get through all of it. And the cadence of the speech, like if this was spoken rather than sung, this would be exceptionally awkward. These are not normal places to take breaths. These are not normal places to pause your sentence. Usually you would want to have a pause at a period or a comma or something like that, much like I just did, and then you can proceed on with the next idea. But that's not what happens here. We kind of run through the periods, say the beginning of the next sentence, then take a breath after saying 1 or 2 words, and then proceed on with the sentence. It's awkward in speech, and I think it kind of comes off awkward here. The end of the sentence seems like a good time to take a breath. The end of the bar seems like a good time to take a breath, and he subverts both of these in order to create this, which sounds like somebody who is just constantly spewing out words, stream of consciousness style, and just breathing wherever is possible. There is no thought behind it, there is no intentionality to it. The breath comes whenever it is needed. It also comes very prominently. It sounds more like somebody who has just run a marathon and is trying to deliver a speech, more so than someone who is in a good aerobic state where they haven't just exhausted themselves and they're not trying to catch their breath. And I find that to be a really interesting way to deliver this, because that does make me anxious. The music does not, but the vocal delivery does. What is this juxtaposition supposed to represent? Why do we have such chill music, and then this person is telling me this like it is something that cannot wait? It needs to be told right now, and they're out of breath. They ran to catch up to me, and they just need to tell me this doomsday scenario, and that feels very intense to me. This makes up a majority of the opening 2 to 3 minutes. But then we kind of chill out a little bit. The vocals take a little bit of a turn. We begin to introduce some lighter ideas in the music, even lighter than we already had. And this eventually gives way to the steel drums, into that sort of, beachside ukulele style playing. The rhythmic performance in the guitar completely switches up. The timbre of the guitar switches up. Lots of just ideas that bring the intensity way down on all fronts. And again, I'm kind of cheating here. Usually when you listen to a song for the first time, you're just absorbing it. But I have the timer in front of me. I know that at this point in the song, We have some ahs in the background, we have this chill guitar stuff, very light percussive work, and there's less than a minute to go. I figured this was going to be the end of the song. But no, with 30 seconds left, we ramp up the intensity ridiculously. The drums kick up to a full speed. I don't really think we have too much of a tempo change. At best, I think you could call this double time, only because we're playing so much faster than we used to be playing. But I think it is a perfect 2 times speed, at least as far as time feel goes. I'm pretty sure the tempo is the same, or is, if nothing else, doubled. The drums kick it up though, tons of intensity. The guitars are louder and meatier and fuzzier than before. The bass is this blaring low end sound. They're all playing fast, and we bring the same vocal delivery back. That exasperated, I need to get this off my chest right now, and I know I'm a little bit winded, but you need to hear it right now, immediately. And this all comes together into something incredibly anxious, incredibly tense. This is what comes off of that really chill beach vibe. How does that work? And so, my relationship to this song on a first time listen is that the narrative arc to me is this division, this contrast between tension and relaxation, and then a hyper focus on the relaxation that leads to a hyper focus on the tension. That's a wild ride to go on. There's, of course, peaks and valleys through all of this. There are sections that are a bit more tense, a bit more chill, but on the whole, this is how I feel the song. 3 minutes of one style, a minute and a half of the next, and then like 45 seconds of the final. And I'm going to be completely honest here, I'm very confused by that. None of this really seems to make a lot of sense to me, but I will say overall it works, it fits. I think it only feels jagged from this analytical angle, because in the moment, I think it all feels rather nice. It's still kind of jarring to go between the series of sections in the last 2 minutes or so, but aside from that, I enjoyed most moments of this track. But when I really think about that roller coaster ride, I'm like, wow, we went all over the place with this. So many highs and lows on it. I don't know what all that means. Now, as far as more of a technical side of things, this is a lot of texture, atmosphere, chords, and embellishing ideas. I really like the embellishing ideas on this. We have usually the guitar doing some sort of texture, chordal work, providing the atmosphere of the song. We have the bass guitar creating the low end floor, also more of a foundational idea, just like the guitar. The drums are functional, not a lot of spice or pizzazz to it, usually. There are some drum fills, though, that ramp up the intensity massively, sometimes to transition us into a more energetic section, but sometimes to subvert that. We'll build up into nothing. We'll bring that intensity back down. The vocals are rather consistent throughout the opening couple of minutes. It's just basically 2 or 3 melodic ideas that get cycled over and over with varying words. The lyrics themselves change. I don't think that the musical lick that the vocals sing alters much. There's a couple of rhythmic choices that I saw that were altered, but for the most part, the emotion of the vocals, the range of the vocals, the movement of the vocals was rather consistent across this track. Not to say that they were boring or one note, but simply that they didn't have a lot of large jumps, there wasn't a lot of range shifts. It all sort of focused within a series of ideas that were very closely related. But then there's the ornamentation. This, I think, is what sells the song for me, what elevates it from something that could be a mediocre track to something that I quite enjoyed. It's the little ideas, usually coming from the synthesizer. Sometimes they are texture based, sometimes they're melodic, sometimes it's just a little ornamental lick, 3 or 4 notes here and there to put a little sparkle and shine in places to, I don't know, change things up a little bit here and there. A lot of these end up feeling very bright and punchy, which I think is an interesting shift from the guitars, which tend to either be a bit muted or fuzzy, very wide sounding. So it provides a nice contrast to the guitar tone while still usually being around the same pitches, and works in not really being a call and response or a counterpoint to the vocals, but to kind of dance around what the vocals are doing to provide a little bit of shimmering around that main melody. It keeps the song feeling fresh, despite the not necessarily repetition, but consistent atmosphere that we hear throughout the song in the first half. Now, this is how half of the song is built, but the back half is different. As I mentioned, in that bridge, we kind of ditch a lot of the ideas. We bring the intensity way down. The guitar lightens up. I think it's just a clean electric here. There's a lot of palm muting going on. There's a very laid back rhythm to it. It no longer plays atmospheric stuff. It is still, I think, foundational. It's still primarily focused on chords, but it doesn't really have a lot of bite or fuzz or aesthetic texture to it anymore. It's just an electric guitar. The synthesizer actually gives us our atmosphere on this one, the texture that sits around the guitars. And to me, this entire section, like I mentioned, kind of feels like chilling at a beach. And out of nowhere, the drums ramp up the intensity, the guitars kick way into overdrive, tons of fuzz, massive amounts of texture on this. The guitars take over chordal and texture duty in the final 30 to 40 seconds. And it feels like punk rock almost. Very raw indie rock style guitars, lots of chords, lots of strumming, lots of beating of the drums. It is just loud and abrasive. Lots of ideas in here, musically, texturally, production wise. What does it all mean though? Why does some of this feel chill while everything else feels anxious? I don't know. I'm going to dive into some lyrics, see what's going on there. Musically though, I'm just filled with intrigue. There's also, completely forgot about those moments where the vocal is like singular and center panned throughout most of this song, but there are certain phrases or lyrical passages where we get a very wide vocal harmony. Center and left-right channels, different pitches on them, creating these very wide, very Queen-esque stacks of vocals. Why? What's special about those phrases, those sentences? I don't think I'm going to learn that from the lyrics. That would be something for a second time listen, with lyrics pulled up, seeing how some of these lines are said. But it is something that stood out to me. Maybe it's just for an aesthetic choice, a way to punctuate the end of a 4-bar phrase. Let's throw some wide vocal stacks in there. But maybe it isn't. Maybe there is a purpose to splitting the vocals on those specific moments. I don't know. Let's look at some lyrics, see what's going on there. Alright, so we have a song about, I believe, a trans person, but told from the perspective of people around them. I find this to be very interesting. Verse 1 talks about somebody who has a tough time accepting the trans person. Says, I'm just trying to make sense of the things that you feel now. With Spiro and Estro from Venautu, what do you think that'll do to you? I didn't know what these were, but fortunately there's a annotation here. These are two medications that are part of hormone therapy. And this person says, what do you think that'll do to you? I won't say she, even though I know you want me to. I know that it's hard, but I swear I still love you. So we have somebody who has a tough time accepting this other person as trans in their transformation to another gender, but they still, this makes it difficult. They still love them in a sense. And it's tough to kind of say where that comes from without having more information about this person. Because from one perspective, that could be seen as I don't accept who you are becoming, but I still love the person who you were, which feels like a bit of a slap in the face. But it could come from a more maybe innocent or naive perspective. I still love who you are becoming. It's just I can't change the language about you, which still isn't great, but I feel like it's a little bit better than the former situation. Verse 2 continues on in this vein. It says you need to cover your neck or they'll cut your head off. You're only cute with your hard eyes and legs crossed. Write the things you think when you're out of your body. Run yourself out of words to say that you're hopelessly lonely. And don't leave the city and don't leave the covers. I know it's hard, but I swear I still love you. So there is a care for this person. Basically saying hide everything. Right? Try to be more of your gender at birth. And if you are going to choose to do this transition, don't show it off. Don't go into the city. Don't even leave the house. Stay in your bed all the time. I love you. I care about you. I don't want you to get hurt. Like I said, it's a complicated relationship here. I don't necessarily think this person means ill, but they're not being as supportive as I think they are either. Now, what's interesting then is the chorus shifts perspective. It says, I'm never going to understand. I'm everything that you think about her behind her back. The whole truth. Does it hurt to say you love her like your son? The world could kill her just because she can't fit in right. Basically saying, I think that the entire world is out to get this person simply because she is who she is. She really needs someone like you in her corner. And I don't understand how you could not be that person for them. Verse 3, though, possibly goes to another perspective, this one of a lover. And I really like how we take some of the sentences from the previous verse and sort of flip them here. It says, yeah, they'll make it dangerous when they leave no room to breathe in the space they carved out for us, when they get inside your head, give you little white lies and black eyes, when they try to change your shape until your sense of self dies. So basically, the world's going to try to tell you who to be. They've already carved out a shape of what you're supposed to look like, and you better fit that. And if you don't, there's mental and physical repercussions for that. It says, but despite all that, you make me feel like I'm out of my body. We ran out of words to say that we're hopelessly lonely. So don't leave the city, and please don't leave the covers. Just stay right here, babe. Let's live life like lovers do. And taking this idea, because last verse said, write things that you think when you're out of body, when you're having disassociation, whether that's body dysphoria or whatever. Somebody told him, just write those thoughts down. Maybe that'll be enough. And it says that you're going to run out of ways to say that you're lonely. And then also said, don't leave the city. Don't even leave your bed. I want you to be safe here. This inverts all of that and says, when I'm with you, I feel like I'm out of body. Like I'm in a euphoric state. And we've run out of ways to say that we're lonely. Who cares now? Just stay right here with me. because I love you. Let's just spend the day together. And I love taking all of those words from the previous verse and inverting it here and trying to make something positive out of it. And that's pretty much it. We hit the chorus again, the interlude, which is the beach vibes, is a bunch of ohs and woes and vocalizations. And then we have a final stanza, which is mostly taking lines from verse 1 and repurposing them. So, how does all of this work together? Honestly, I don't know. The fluctuation between calm and chill and relaxation and anxiety, I can get elements of that depending on who this person is talking to in their life. It could create anxious situations, it could create stress, or it could create a feeling of a feeling of belonging, a sense of relief and relaxation. I think the first couple of verses definitely go towards that anxious, stressful section, and the third verse, very, very positive, very hopeful, very loving. There's also an element of acceptance in there too that I think helps with this feeling of peace. But what's interesting is the third verse is followed up with the chorus, which is, as I mentioned, a bit accusatory, kind of saying, she needs someone in her corner. Why isn't that you? You say you love her, but, you're not showing it. But after this chorus, we go to the interlude, which is the chill beach vibes, very relaxing. This feels like it would follow up verse 3 really well, but doesn't feel like it follows up the chorus very well. Unless maybe the chorus is from the perspective of the same person from verse 3. In which case, it is no longer simply accusatory, it is now from an element of defense. We have somebody defending this other person. And after saying, hey, I accept you for who you are, and I'm going to fight these people who can't accept you for who you are, maybe they feel at peace because of that. They have that support, someone in their corner. There is one new line in the outro that I think is fantastic. It says, I won't think about nothing but loving you. Of course, there's the double negative in there that we just need to ignore for colloquial reasons. The idea behind it, though, is that there's all these other things that I could focus on, but I'm not going to worry about that because I'm here with you. That's all I'm going to focus on right now. How does that work with the ending, then? I read the ending as anxious, and I suppose that this could be read as just a heightened sense of joy, of happiness. Maybe that's what the punky, fast, upbeat section is supposed to be at the end. Not necessarily stress, but energy. It's that feeling of high, of being with someone you love being around. Maybe. But I don't feel like I have a strong enough grasp on the track right now to fully commit to that. Although I do think it is the better of the two reads that I had on that final section. So with that said, let's wrap this up. These are my thoughts. Glass Beach, Yoshi's Island. Why is it called Yoshi's Island though? I mean, maybe someone who's more familiar with the soundtrack could tell me if maybe there's some specific samples or rhythmic ideas or something like that present in here that comes from the Yoshi's Island soundtrack. But I didn't hear anything musically, although I'm not super familiar with the music from that game. And there's nothing lyrically that makes me think of Yoshi's Island at all. So I'm kind of wondering where that relationship is. Why was this song called that? With that said, these are my thoughts on it. What are yours? Did you enjoy the song? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation or opinion on the track. Please put all of that and any other thoughts you might have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.